Yo, what's good YouTube, man? It's Gabriel, this on Fan TV, man. Back at you another video. At the content of this video, go smash that like button at the content of this channel. Go ahead and subscribe, man. Look, so the Ravens take a very, very disappointing loss to the Las Vegas Raiders, excuse me. They've been in Las Vegas too long to still be doing that. But to the Las Vegas Raiders, 26-23 today, okay? So we can talk about a lot of things in this game, all right? But, you know, the main thing is about John Harbaugh, right? And where I'm at right now, I'm in Michigan. You know, my daughter just turned 6, right? So we had a, birthday party with the family, everything like that. So that's why the background's looking like this. You know, I'm somewhere else. But regardless of that, right? Got to watch the game today, and we got to talk about one stat. Let's talk about one stat right here. Let me go ahead and pull it up. John Harbaugh, okay? 11 losses in the last 5 seasons when leading by 7+ points in the fourth quarter, most in the NFL. 11 times the Ravens have had a touchdown lead plus, right? I think it might even be 10 plus points, right? I just said 7 because I knew that was what it was for sure. It could even be 10 plus points in the fourth quarter, okay? So we're talking about a 7+ lead for sure in the fourth quarter. The Ravens have blown this kind of lead 11 times in the last 5 seasons, okay? I was on the Fire John Harbaugh train in 2018. Okay, I was on the Fire John Harbaugh train multiple years ago as well, right? But he got bailed out because the Ravens have all these injuries. How are you expecting John Harbaugh to win with all these injuries, right? I think it was the 2021 season, right? It's been coming for years for John Harbaugh to lose his job. Okay, let's talk about people want to talk about referees, right? The Devontae Adams pass interference with Brandon Steves in the end zone, terrible call, right? Brandon Steves has every right to fight for the football. It shouldn't have been called. Cool, right? John Harbaugh cost the Ravens again, just like in week 1, multiple timeouts. This time with a challenge, okay? He challenged the play with Devontae Adams, who clearly caught the ball. 2 feet in bounds. They lost the challenge. Then they take another timeout. All right. So now when the Ravens need those timeouts at the end of the game, right, when they can stop the Raiders a couple of times, let the Raiders kick 3 and then go down the field, kind of similar to the Chiefs last week, right, and get points, guess what? The Ravens don't have any timeouts now. So now that everything is forced, you pretty much depend on Hail Marys to try to win you the football game, okay? There is too many times where a John Harbaugh-led football team gets beat by the same things over and over again. Bonehead penalties, mental errors, poor challenges, okay? Things that just do not make sense that repeatedly happen to his football teams. So when we see as fans, right, the coordinators change, offense and defense, they change. The players change all along offense and defense, they change. Who is constant? Who is still here? This wasn't a Greg Roman's offense. This wasn't his fault, right? This wasn't a young Mike McDonald defense who blew, a couple of leads and, early in his tenure, right? That wasn't that. Todd Monken's here, Zach Orr's here. You want to blame them? Go ahead. I'm not doing that. I'm looking at their boss, okay? John Harbaugh, once again, has let this team down. Then we don't even have to talk about the biggest thing that they have let this team down with is that the offensive line on the right side is atrocious, okay? From the beginning, I have said your offensive line needs to be Stanley, Voorhees, Linderbaum, Cleveland, and Rosengarten. Okay? They insist on him playing McCurry at right tackle for whatever reason. I don't know. All right? Listen, McCurry is one thing, a swing lineman. When somebody goes down, he provides serviceable replacement for that lineman. He is not a starting caliber offensive lineman. He never has been, right? We're charading himself, putting him out there like that. It's only really a disservice to him, and most importantly, his $200 million quarterback behind him that he's getting hit. Okay? Then you got Daniel Flaherty, right? I say this all the time. The Ravens tried to draft the next Jordan Mailata, right? Big guy. With that background, let's see if we can make him into. Let's see if we can mold him into something. It didn't work. Didn't work at tackles. Let's say, okay, you know what? Bad tackles, right? They can play at guard. We've seen it work sometimes. Cool. Let's try him out there. He is too slow-footed to do that. It's not in his game. And now you have him learning position on the fly with, once again, your $200 million quarterback taking the brunt of the hits. Okay? Before the last drive of the game, for the very last time the Ravens touched football, excuse me. Max Crosby hits him with a stunt, right? Falele is lost. Now, not only is Falele lost, right? Max Crosby gets a free hit on Lamar Jackson and power drives him into the ground. So not only did the Ravens lose 10 yards on that play, their quarterback could have been seriously hurt on that play as well. All right. The offensive line is not just bad for this team, but it is a health hazard for your quarterback. I'm not telling you that Cleveland and Rosengarten are going to magically fix this offensive line, that you put them in there and everything's going to be perfect. No, of course not. You know, it might not work. But what I'm telling you, what is definitely not working is for Lele and McCary. Okay? It's not all their fault, no, right? They should have been put in this spot. The guy who put him in this spot, who is that? John Harbaugh. All right? Too many times have people fallen on the sword because it's easy to blame somebody else, because you know why? John Harbaugh doesn't call plays on either side of the ball. Not an offensive guru, not a defensive mastermind, a special teams ace. That's what John Harbaugh is. So, we can't really point at the special teams too many times, right? And say, oh, well, that's John Harbaugh's unit. We can't do that. So the Ravens, we have to live with the decisions, and John Harbaugh gets the duck accountability, he gets the duck blame because his hands are not really in the pot, right? Throughout John Harbaugh's tenure as Ravens OC, there's really only been, Ravens head coach, As far as offensive coordinator, he's only picked a couple of guys that have been successful, right? As for the Ravens, Gary Kubiak, okay, who went on to become a head coach 1 year later, and then Jim Caldwell, for the Super Bowl runs and things like that. Okay. Besides that, every offensive coordinator pick hasn't been great, hasn't worked out for long periods of time, and eventually we got to stop blaming those guys. Okay. For me, Greg Roman was fine to blame. I think Greg Roman did a lot of things that weren't innovative and up to date. But Todd Monken is that guy. Todd Monken is a good offensive coordinator. He's a good offensive mind. You cannot tell me that now all of a sudden with Todd Monken it's just falling to pieces. I don't believe it. Okay? You gotta look at the head coach here. All right. As far as the game goes, as far as what happened with Derrick Henry, the Ravens finally started to realize that you can't just run Derrick Henry up the gut. You have to give him some chances on the outside. And they did that, okay? So they were able to bounce him outside a couple of times, off the left side, behind Voorhees, behind Stanley, and really get some push going, right? Because this is the main thing I've been saying about Derrick Henry, right? Yes, he is a power back, but you have to give him a runway to get going, all right? And off the right side of the line and up directly up the middle, he wasn't given that runway. But once the Ravens started running outside zone kind of plays to the left, we saw a vintage Derrick Henry stiff arm. We saw a Derrick Henry 30-yard run. We saw Derrick Henry, a guy that said, okay, this is why he was paid $16 million over 2 seasons to do these kind of things, right? When you get down to these kind of games, you get down to these high leverage moments, right? As a fan, you want to be able to say, okay, I have faith and trust in my head coach to make the correct decisions down the line. I don't have that at all. I haven't had that since Lamar Jackson was the quarterback. Okay? Because, like I said, once again, it all comes back to the same thing. Before Lamar Jackson saved John Harbaugh's job, and no matter how many times people try to deny this is exactly what happened. There were articles coming out about how it's time for the Ravens and John Harbaugh to part ways. Okay, after Joe Flacco got hurt, and the Ravens were 4-5 on the season, and ended up going 6-1 to make the playoffs. Right? These articles exist. You can still find them. Okay, that it is time for the Ravens to part ways with John Harbaugh. After they go 6-1, Lamar Jackson saves his job. The Ravens should have said, "That's what, move on." But they didn't do that. Right? 2021, another disappointing season. Ravens should have moved on, but they said, you know what? All of these injuries, right? We can't do that. Last year, the Ravens have the best defensive coordinator in the league. The guy who is the could be the next great head coach, right? And instead of moving on from John Harbaugh, they started to move on from the young, bright Mike Macdonald. Do you know what Seattle did, right? Instead of firing Pete Carroll, They just put Pete Carroll in the front office, right? Go upstairs, Pete. Right? You know, Mike McDonald's a young head coach. He might need some pointers here and there. You might need some help. You can help him out like that, but you can't be the head coach of this team anymore. But Eric DeCosta, Steve Bisciotti, they can't do that. Well, I can't say Eric DeCosta. He can't fire him. That's gonna be a Steve Bisciotti decision, right? They won't do it. Mike McDonald was right there. Mike McDonald should be the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens right now. And there's nothing against Zach Orr either, right? Zach Orr is a young DC. He'll figure it out, okay? But at the end of the day, we can't keep losing these kind of games repeatedly and then say it's this guy's fault, that guy's fault. It all has to come back to John Harbaugh at some point. He's the only head coach in the league where everything can fall apart around him, but the media will say, well, this went wrong, that went wrong. It's never John Harbaugh's fault. And yes, this video is supposed to be about how the Ravens lost this game, but really that doesn't matter. The fact is that they lost this game, right? The how, the who, the why doesn't matter. Okay? It all comes back down to one man, John Harbaugh. All right, so that's where I'm at with it. I'm frustrated. The Ravens should be 1-1 this season. Instead, they're 0-2, right? It doesn't get any easier. They have the Cowboys, the Bills, the Bengals, the next 3 games. If by some shocking reasons the Ravens are 0-5, he has to go. I don't want to hear it. John Harbaugh has to be fired. There's no other way to say it. Okay. You can't go 0-5 on a team that was suspected to be a Super Bowl contender or Super Bowl, one of the co-favorites between them and the Chiefs to represent the AFC. You can't go 0-5. Can't do it. He got to go. All right. Even if the Ravens go 1-4, got to go. The Ravens need to be at the 5 games 2-3, 3-2. Anything less than that, they got to fire the coach. As simple as that. That's my thoughts on it, man. Like I said, maybe I'll talk more about the game tomorrow and things the Ravens could have did better here and there. You know, I'll watch back the tapes, but I'm gonna be flying back to Baltimore tomorrow, so I might not even have time to do that. But I want to drop the video today, man. So give me your thoughts on the game. I'm extremely frustrated. The Ravens once again threw away a game that they had in their grasp, right? And there's the one common denominator that's still there, and that's John Harbaugh. That's my thoughts on it, man. So give me your thoughts on the game, but it's Gary Root on Fan TV. I'm out.